Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most dramatic moves a court can make during a lawsuit, literally seizing control of the very property everyone is fighting over. It's a powerful and, frankly, pretty intense legal tool called receivership, all governed by Rule 59.
So let's kick things off with a pretty high-stakes scenario. Imagine a lawsuit over a really valuable asset. Now, while the lawyers are busy arguing in court, the asset itself, the business, the building, whatever it is literally falling apart or hemorrhaging money. What can a court actually do to stop the bleeding? And look, this isn't just some abstract legal puzzle. We're talking about a family business being run into the ground by bad management, or maybe an apartment complex that's falling into serious disrepair while the case just drags on and on. You can see the problem, right? A court can't just sit by and let the very thing being fought over just disappear before a winner is even declared.
It all boils down to preservation. I mean, think about it. If the asset is worthless or destroyed by the time the judge finally makes a decision, that victory is completely hollow. So the legal system absolutely needs some kind of emergency button it can press. And that emergency button is something called receivership, found right there in Rule 59. This is what's known as a provisional remedy. You can basically think of it as a temporary fix, a way for the court to parachute in a neutral caretaker to protect the property while the main legal battle unfolds. So what is a receiver exactly? Well, the easiest way to think of one is as a court-appointed custodian. This person isn't the owner, and they definitely don't get to decide who the future owner will be. Nope. Their one and only job, their entire mission, is to manage and preserve that property, all under the very strict supervision of the court. And to actually get that job done, a receiver is given some serious power. They can step in and take possession, they can collect any rents or debts owed to the property, pay off urgent bills, and even file lawsuits on behalf of the asset. Essentially, they become the temporary CEO, with one very clear boss, the court. Okay, so this is a huge amount of power to give someone, right? So it makes sense that courts can't just appoint a receiver whenever they feel like it. The rules lay out some very specific conditions. So let's dig into when this drastic step is actually allowed. The rulebook basically gives us a checklist of situations. Now, the big one, the one you'll see pop up most often, is that first one, when there's a real tangible danger that the property could be lost, removed, or seriously damaged. The other grounds cover more specific cases, like a foreclosure or protecting an asset after the trial is over but is now on appeal. But you see the common thread, right? It's always about preservation. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Even with these grounds written down in black and white, courts are incredibly cautious about appointing a receiver. It's really seen as a remedy of last resort, not something you just jump to. So why the hesitation? Why are courts so reluctant? Well, because think about what's happening here. The court is temporarily stripping an owner of their fundamental right to control their own property. That is a huge deal. And to see just how high the bar is set, let's look at how courts have actually dealt with this in some real-world cases. This quote from a landmark case, Chavez, just cuts right to the heart of it. The court makes it crystal clear. For them to even consider this, they need to see evidence that the property itself is in real danger. A simple financial dispute between partners just isn't going to cut it. This is about preserving the physical asset, not just one person's share of the profits. And that Chavez case is the perfect example of this in action. The request for a receiver was shot down because the whole argument was just about one party not getting their cut of the income. The court's message was unmistakable. Sorry, that's a money problem. A receivership is for when the actual farm is about to get washed away or the factory is about to collapse. Then you have another great case, Callow versus Roldan, which adds this brilliant, almost common-sense layer to everything. The court's logic was simple. Hey, if you're the one already in possession of the property, why are you asking us to protect it? The whole idea is that if you're already there, you're the one with the biggest incentive and the ability to preserve it yourself, which makes a receiver totally unnecessary. So, if we boil all of this down, strip away all the legalese, what's the one single goal of receivership? What's the one word that really matters? It's all about hitting a giant pause button. The receiver's job is purely custodial. They're just there to maintain the status quo, to make sure there's something of value left to actually give to the rightful owner when the case is finally over. That's why it's called an ancillary remedy. It's not the main event. It's just a critical sideshow that makes sure the main lawsuit isn't all for nothing. And this whole discussion leaves us with a final, really crucial question.
Receivership forces courts to face this fundamental conflict. How do you protect a valuable asset from being destroyed without just trampling all over an owner's fundamental right to control their own property? Finding that perfect balance, well, that's one of the toughest tightropes a court ever has to walk.